So these tasks allowed him to familiarize himself with the mineral and plant world and arouse in his scientific curiosity. Goethe himself considered his scientific world as important as his literary oeuvre. He is credited with 45 publications in the field of earth science. Toward the end of his life, he had a mineral collection of over 80,000 specimens, not counting the smaller collection he gave away to friends and fellow geologists. Goethe's views are by no means typical of these times. His scientific beliefs were opposed to the Newtonian tradition. His theory of Earth history are marked with a reluctance to speculate. He refused to go further back in history than the evidence of the Earth's present surface, and in particular of the oldest granite mountain. I quote, "One should not look," he declared, "for anything beyond the phenomena. Themselves are the theory." He also stated that his morphology seeks, I quote, "only to represent and not to explain." So he tried to solve the problem of the historicity of nature in different ways. He developed his ideas on the origins of the Earth from his arrival in Weimar in 1775 until 1785, when he wrote his famous and best-known geological essay on granite. So you have the slides. He visited the mines at Rammelsberg, the oldest continuously worked mine in Europe. He also visited the Oker Valley, where he sketched the granite cliffs you see on the three slides I have put in my PowerPoint. The text on granite was composed during the summer of 1885. It opens with a discussion of the use of granite by the Egyptians, and he reminds to his readers that there was at the time complete agreement among geologists that granite, I quote, "makes up the very foundation of our Earth." So if we can move to the next slide, Yolaine, and to the text on granite, I will be grateful to you. So all these are all drawings made by Goethe during his journeys in the arts. I hope you can read the text. I give you time to read it. I won't read it myself. At the end of the 18th century, it was generally accepted that granite was the oldest type of rock on Earth. Granite, the crystallized rock by excellence, the perfect stone, represents the foundations of everything, the original mass of the geosphere. It also constitutes the material of the highest mountains in Europe, the Brocken for the Alps and the Mont Blanc for the Alps. So you have this wonderful piece of scientific poetry or poetical science that you can read. The word geology only appeared toward the end of the same century, I mean the 18th century. And the Alpine chain was the first mountains studied to have given rise to a coherent interpretation. 1 year after he wrote this text on granite, Goethe passed through the Brenner Pass and crossed the Alps. And when crossing the Alps, as he wrote in his journey in Italy, he believed that he was revealing the mystery that resides in the Alpine landscape and seemed to influence diverse meteorological phenomena that form in the mountain before descending into the valley. When he looked at the mountain of Italy, he was convinced that they are animated by a profound mobility, which imprints its secret force on atmospheric phenomena and is at the origin of this transformation. So you have the next two slides. Yes, this one. It's, I hope you can read it. It's a 19th century English translation of Travels to Italy. So he wrote this piece on the evening of September the 8th on the Brenner. And I would like to stress the importance of the visual in Goethe's work. The importance of the visual have often been emphasized. For him, the most complex notions and ideas could always be represented in a visible form. This doesn't mean that he saw the world as static and fixed, as you can see in the text. The literary scholar Michael Bakhtin says that this is a particular realization of an attitude specific to Goethe. I quote Bakhtin, referring to Goethe and especially to these passages in Travels to Italy. So I quote, his eye did not recognize a purely and simply spatial juxtaposition, a simple coexistence of things and phenomena. Beyond any static diversity, he saw multi-temporality, end of quote. In elements like rocks, mountains, trees, and so on, Goethe saw signs of natural cyclical time. That is to say, the slow formation of the earth over centuries. Against this backdrop of natural time, he finds traces of historical time. In other words, man had an effect on his environment, and this effect lasted. Goethe started dealing with meteorology in 1815, just after he had essentially finished his scientific studies in the fields of geology, mineralogy, botany, and of course the theory of lights and colors. He kept a daily cloud journal, recording his observations of the sky. He was especially interested in the transitions and movement between cloud forms. This year, in 1815, he discovered the writings of Luke Howard, on the modification of clouds and on the principle of their production, suspension, and destruction. And Goethe became an enthusiastic reader of the British pharmacists and chemists, who was the first to divide clouds in various types 12 years ago, and who gave the names that are still used today: cumulus, cirrus, stratus. And Goethe even went so far as to dedicate a poem to Howard 6 years later. In 1833, the chapter devoted to meteorology in the edition of his complete works opens with a preface entitled Folgengestalt nach Howard, Cloud Shape According to Howard, where Goethe writes about the interests of Howard terminology for the painter and the poet. So the aesthetic meanings of clouds is never detached from the objective understanding of their phenomenal structure. That is to say, of the relation which most interested Goethe between permanence and variation. The poetic representation of clouds and of the passage of a cloud from one form into another is an example of the dialogue that took place between poets and scholars at this time, at the turn of the 18th and 19th century. And of course, the influence of Howard's work on European scholars, painters, and writers of the 19th century was huge. So among the art, we can move to the next slide if you want, Yolaine. Yeah, the cloud study. So among the artists who were influenced by Howard's theories, there is, of course, Constable. In 1921 and 1922, Constable made around 100 studies of clouds in Hampstead, capturing all sorts of shapes, size, and colors of the clouds. These cloud studies, for the art historians, are one of the first plein air painting in art history. Constable went out into the meadow, and painted with oil paints the sky he saw above him. So I mentioned Constable also because his studies of clouds have been at the origin of a text of a great French mathematician and contemporary French mathematician and poet, recently deceased, Jacques Roubaud. Jacques Roubaud has, we can go to, yeah, thank you. I didn't have time to translate it this morning, but I will send you an English translation of this text. So the title of Roubaud books is Ciel et Terre et ciel et ciel, that is sky and earth, and earth and sky, and sky. And like Goethe, Roubaud associated clouds with childhood and childhood memories. The second half of the text can be translated as this. Constable has made a quest for time the central form of his painting, and discovered, here was his genius, a pictorial solution to his mystery in the contrast between sky and earth, between an earth populated with fixed image of the past, places from childhood, and a sky populated with moving image of the present, perpetuated in the future, the clouds. The clouds were the sign, and Roubaud goes on like this. They were the sign of an essential paradox traced widely, perpetually in the sky. The landscape on the ground offers us permanence, the moving fixed of memory. The eternally changing sky also has a sort of permanence, since the cloud castles are constantly undone and then rebuilt by the wind. But this permanence is infinitely more durable than that of terrestrial objects. End of quote. So Goethe's poetic description of clouds can also be found in the poems of Novalis and Wordsworth, and in Shelley and in Coleridge. And Shelley and Coleridge established poems devoted to clouds as poetic arts. Here refer to a smart article written by Dario Gamboni. He rightly spoke in this regard of, I quote, the interpretation of clouds as a modern paradigm of artistic perception and creation. Paradigm of romantic awareness of the fact that the reality goes beyond its intelligibility, its representability. So without any kind of transition, I now come to the North American Transcendentalism. Philosophical movement within the Romantic period, it brought forward a literature that focuses on the possibility of an harmonious relationship with the environment in works of non-fiction, poetry, and fiction. In 1836, Emerson expressed in his pantheistic view of the world in a famous text entitled Nature. Nature is sacred because nature is a place where God can be found. So I have selected two passages from this text. The first one, I read it, "In the woods is perpetual youth. Within these plantations of God, a decorum and sanctity reign. The perennial festival is dressed, and the guest sees not how he should tire of them in 1,000 years. In the woods we return to reason and faith. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent ball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or particle of God. When we speak of nature in this manner, we have a distinct but most poetical sense in the mind. We mean the integrity of impression made by manifold natural objects. It is which distinguishes the stick of timber of the woodcutter from the tree of the poet. The charming landscape which I saw this morning is indubitably made up of some 20 or 30 farms. Miller owns this field, Locke that, and Manning the woodland beyond, but none of them owns the landscape. There is a property in the horizon which no man has, but he whose eye can integrate all the parts, I mean the poet. So no one owns the landscape. In the third chapter of Nature, Beauty, and this is the the slides you can have a look at now. Emerson elaborates, and I think this is very interesting for us, elaborated on the fact that in ancient Greek, cosmos meant beauty, organization, ornament. Through this equivalence between cosmos and beauty, we return to the question of the eye and the dimension of contemplation. So I quote, I read this quotation. A nobler want of man, I mean a desire, is served by nature, namely the love of beauty. The ancient Greeks called the world cosmos beauty. Such is the constitution of all things, or such the plastic power of the human eye, that the primary forms of the sky, the mountains, the trees, the animal, gives us a delight in and for themselves. A pleasure arising from outline, color, motion, and grouping. This seems partly owing to the eye itself. The eye is the best of artists. By the mutual action of this structure and of the law of light, perspective is produced, which integrates every mass of objects of what character soever into a well-colored and shaped globe, so that where the particular objects are, mean and affecting, the landscape which we compose is round and symmetrical. And as the eye is the best composer, so light is the first of painters. There is no object so full that intense light will not make it beautiful, and the stimulus it affords to the sense and the sort of infinitude which it has, like space and time, made all matter gay. End of quote. Then you have the next slide. If we can skip to, thank you very much. This is, you may have recognized Carlton Watkins picture. I put it here because Transcendentalism greatly influenced American landscape photography of this century. So this image of Carlton Watkins, first view on the Yosemite Valley from the Mariposa Trail, taken in 1865 or 66, was the first document of the wilderness that would become Yosemite National Park. And this picture of Watkins' pictures of the Yosemite Valley served an essential role in Congress establishing Yosemite as a national park in the same years. The law passed in 1864. Transcendentalism is also at the origin of this typically North American literary genre, I mean nature writing. In the various genres of essay, fiction, and poetry, nature writers have sought to explore in what ways the environment defines who they are, how society develops in harmony or in discord with surroundings, and what the human potential for understanding the natural world is. I will only mention one nature writing text, Silent Spring, written by and published by Rachel Carson in 1962, because this is the seminal environmental text that sparked the modern environmental movement. And the book starts with Carson's fable for tomorrow, based on actual example of places where DDT has damaged wildlife, farm animals, pets, and people, etc., etc. Okay. No transition again. I now come to this second aspects of the 19th century literature I'm interested in. The literature in which or the concept of literature, which is taking in account the notion of world. And this is, of course, the notion of Weltliteratur. I first returned to Goethe, since, as you know, Goethe is also the man who coined the concept. His ideas of Weltliteratur has come down to us through Eckermann family posthumous portrait, first published in 1837, under the title Gespräche mit Goethe in den letzten Jahren seines Lebens, conversation with Goethe in the final years of his life. So you will have you have the text on the next slide. Thank you very much, Yolaine. I swear to learn to share the screen for the next seminar, and I will do it for you. It's a diary, January 31, 1827. So Eckermann has dinner with his master, and he's reporting what Goethe said this day. Within the last few days since I saw you, he said, I have read many things, especially a Chinese novel, which occupies me still and seems to me very remarkable. Chinese novel, said I, that must look strange enough. Not so much as you might think, said Goethe. The Chinese think, act and feel almost exactly like us, and we soon find that we are perfectly like them, except that all they do is more clear, pure, and decorous than with us. With them, all is orderly, citizen-like, without great passion or poetic flight. And there is a strong resemblance to my Herman and Dorothy, as well as the English novel of Richardson. They likewise differ from us in that with them, external nature is always associated with the human figures. You always hear the goldfish splashing in the pond. The birds, writers can be wonderful critics. The birds are always singing on the bough. The day is always serene and sunny. The night is always clear. There is much talk about the moon, but it doesn't alter the landscape. Its light is conceived to be as bright as day itself, and the interior of the houses is as neat and elegant as their picture. I am more and more convinced, Goethe continued, that poetry is the universal possession of mankind, revealing itself everywhere and at all times in hundreds and hundreds of men. I therefore like to look about me in foreign nations and advise everyone to do the same. National literature is now rather an unmeaning term, and then the famous sentence, the epoch of world literature, or Weltliteratur, is at hand, and everyone must strive to hasten its approach. And of course. So Weltliteratur highlights everything that literary exchange offers in the form of translation, exchange of information, and personal contact. The principle of exchange of material goods as well as symbolic goods lies for Goethe in diversity. I do not exchange what I already have. What is exchange or exchangeable presents a double aspect. The particular dimension, which makes it interesting, but also a universal dimension. What is exchanged is not only defined by its particularity. And this double perspective is what, according to Goethe, characterizes Weltliterature. Of course, you have noted that it was in talking about a Chinese novel that he made this famous declaration: "The epoch of world literature is at hand, and everyone must strive to hasten his approach." Okay, the Weltliteratur, the notion of Weltliteratur was almost forgotten after Goethe during the 19th century and up until the 50s of the last century. It only interested specialists in comparative literature. But the notion reappeared after the Second World War. And we can move to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah. So in 1952, the great German philologist Erich Auerbach, who was then exiled in the United States, evoked in an article entitled Philologie der Weltliteratur the prospect of cultural standardization, which would be both the accomplishment and the end of the concept of Weltliteratur. And you have the text. It's time to ask what meaning the word Weltliteratur can still have if we relate it, as Goethe did, both to the past and to the future. Our Earth, the domain of Weltliteratur, is growing smaller and losing its diversity. Yet Weltliteratur doesn't merely refer to what is generally common and human. Rather, it considers humanity to be the product of fruitful intercourse between its members. The presupposition of Weltliteratur is a felix culpa, mankind's division in many cultures. You might have seen many languages, of course. Today, however, human life is become standardized. The process of imposed uniformity, which originally derived from Europe, continues its work and hence undermined all individual traditions. Standardization, in short, dominates everywhere. All human activities being concentrated, we are in the Cold War, all human activities being concentrated either into European American or into Russian Bolshevist patterns. No matter how great they seem to us, the differences between the two patterns are comparatively minimal when they are both contrasted with the basic patterns underlying the Islamic, Indian, or Chinese traditions. Should mankind succeed in withstanding the shock of so mighty and rapid a process of concentration, then man will have to accustom himself to existence in a standardized world, to a single literary culture, only a few literary languages, and perhaps even a single literary language. And herewith, the notion of Weltliteratur would be at once realized and destroyed. In any event, concluded Auerbach, I quote, "Our philological home is the earth. Our philological home is the earth. It can no longer be the nation. Jedenfalls ist unsere Philologie Heimat die Erde. Die Nation kann es nicht mehr sein." This short piece, written in German for a Festschrift by Auerbach in 1952, has been translated in English, and I'm quoting this translation, by Edward Said and Marie Said in an American journal in 1969 under the title Philologie and Weltliteratur. They refused, and they rightly refused, to translate Weltliteratur as world literature. I quote the note of the translator, written by the Said couple. In this translation of Auerbach's article, we have chosen not to translate Weltliteratur in English. Such an expedient as world literature, betrays the rather exceptional tradition encompassed by the German term. This is, of course, the word coined by Goethe himself to designate universal literature, or that which expresses humanity, knowing that this expression is the ultimate goal of literature. The concept of Weltliteratur is thus visionary because it transcends national literature without thereby shattering their individuality. End of quote of the translator's note. Unfortunately, and despite these precautions, the language shift toward the dominant use of world literature took place in the English-speaking academic world massively from the years 1980, 2000, with the globalization of literary studies and the development of comparative literature departments. So Weltliteratur has disappeared. World literature became the dominant term in international academic discourse. So the language vector is incredibly important here. World literature is discussed in the English-speaking world. It's the literature of the world that speaks English. And of course, as you may know, world literature took over from postmodern and post-colonial. So world lit comes after post-colonial. I think it's undoubtedly the Booker Prize, established in 1968, England's most coveted book award, which has contributed the most to impose the notion of world literature, and also the globalization of publishing houses. When the prize was first created in 1968, only citizens of the Commonwealth, Ireland, and Zimbabwe, I don't know why it's Zimbabwe, could compete. But since 2013, all English language fiction novels published in the United Kingdom or Ireland are accepted. Only fiction novels written in English are eligible. They must be written by a living author. The winner of this prize is almost assured of international success. For instance, Life of Pi, the book that won the prize in 2002, written by Yann Martel, with Canadian author, has sold 4 million copies. 4 million copies. And was distributed in around 40 countries. A success without comparison with the Nobel Prize winners. The big milestone was the Booker Prize. The big milestone was the Booker Prize going to Salman Rushdie in 1981. That is to say, the symbolic moment which would have inaugurated the progressive demise of British cultural imperialism within the framework of the Commonwealth. Around the same time, that is to say, around the symbolic year of 2000, the millennium, there is a bizarre sound, right? Noise. No. We witnessed a new interest among academic research for the notion of world literature. There is no, as you may know, an Institute of World Literature at Harvard University. And the Institute has drawn hundreds of graduate students and faculty members from dozens of countries every summer. This new interest has something to do with the globalization and the economic globalization and the rise of power, the rise in power of the World Trade Organization in those years. But the notion of world literature today designates two different realities. One is aesthetic, the other economic. The aesthetic reality is, or the genre, literary genre reality is the globalization of the novel. And the economic reality is the globalization and the concentration of publishing houses, which took place during the same last 40 years. So world literature often confuses two different questions, the commercial and the literary. In the year 2000, Franco Moretti wrote an influential paper, Conjectures on the World Literature, in New Left's Review, in which he stated, I quote, "I think it's time we return to that old ambition of Weltliteratur." Once again in German. After all, he goes on, the literature around us is now unmistakably a planetary system. And he used the adjective planetary. It's the only term he uses in his text, because he is not dealing with the planet, but with world literature. He focuses on the modern novel as a transculturally extensive form that has spread from a European core with the dual rise of capitalism and the nation states. So the novel is presented as the first truly planetary literary form. The model is derived from Emanuel Wallerstein's world economy model, as if it were a law of literary evolution. In culture that belong to the periphery of the literary system, it's a model of the center and the periphery. In culture that belong to the periphery of the literary system, and the periphery means almost all culture inside and outside Europe, the modern novel first arises not as an autonomous development, but as a compromise between a Western formal influence, usually English or French, and local materials. Moretti argues that world literature is not the name of an object, is not a thing, but rather the name of a problem. That is to say, a possibility which requires for its science a new critical method that can never be found simply by reading more text. So with mondialization, with globalization, and world literature, you change from close reading to distance reading. Moretti is professor of English and Complete at Stanford. It's where he founded the Center for the Study of the Novel. So he then published a 5-volume sum in Italian, in Romanzo. And from this sum, he made 2 huge volumes in English, the novel, a multi-authored reference work containing more than 100 specially commissioned essays by critics from around the world. And these volumes provided the first international comparative reassessment of the novel anywhere, everywhere, etc. You might like to read a text signed by Jonathan Arak in the same journal, New Left Review. It was an answer to Moretti, and the title of this piece is Anglo-globalism. Anglo-globalism, said Arak, led to comparative literature studies written in English, based on studies written mostly in English, focusing on literary texts mostly written in language that were not in English. And this was a time in the complete department in the US where professors said that it was not necessary to read all the languages, to know all the languages in which this literature has been written. Just as you move from close reading to distant reading, you move from 2 or 3 languages in the whole complete canon to translations in a modern huge corpus you can't master. So what is world literature? David Damrosch, who is the boss of the Institute of World Literature at Harvard, has written a book on this issue. What is world literature? Princeton University Press, 2003. And the book has been probably the single most influential text everywhere in the study of world literature. The differentiating category Damrosch proposes in his book is circulation. Circulation. He conceives of world literature as encompassing, I quote, all literary works that circulate beyond their culture of origin, either in translation or in their original language. Page 4. He argues that, quote again, world literature is a mode of circulation and of reading, a mode that is applicable to individual works as bodies of materials available for reading established classics and new discoveries alike. What is world literature? Page 5. So circulation beyond a context, a local context, is the minimum threshold requirement for literary work to enter the global category of world literature. But circulation per se doesn't seem very discriminating. Why? Because circulation of books is a quantitative notion based on print runs and sales numbers. It is not a qualitative notion based on value judgment and critical examination. Whatever is your thought about value judgment and critical evaluation. Many best-selling books may not survive the test of time, and the most popular fiction may not be the best in literary value. At the same time, as it was once again a question of world literature, the old nature writing took new forms with the ecological crisis. And these two currents can intersect. They can also ignore each other. How is ecological sentiment given expression and form literature? In what ways does literature, contemporary literature, give voice to elements of the non-human world? To what extent do contemporary texts reject the separation of nature and the natural world from the realm of culture, literature, and the arts? How does apocalyptic fiction reveal the problematic tone and form of predictions about environmental and ecological issues? What new ontologies, cosmologies, and epistemologies are made available for rethinking relations between humans and the non-humans' work? Literary critics often focus on literary works they define as environmental literatures or eco-fictions. A very rich imaginary of the environmental crisis has emerged. Their narratives center on environmental disasters and their aftermath, and writing on environmental catastrophes and dystopias are now the mainstream and the most visible subgenre of planetary literature is if something like that exists. The concept of globalization has become incapable of accounting for the planetary events taking place. We can move to the next slide if you wish. Thank you very much. So Elias and Moraru have talked about, of course, we need a term, a planetary term, arguing that, I quote, while unfolding within the same historical moment as globalization, planetarity is configured artistically, philosophically, and intellectually from a different angle and goes in another direction. It represents a transcultural phenomenon whose economical and political underpinnings cannot be ignored. End of quote. We are too familiar with terms, so-called terms. Maybe we are fed up with terms, but it's worthwhile mapping how the planetary is currently used in literary disciplines. Much of our scholarship that has been concerned with the problematic use of scale has indicated that globalization is the scale of capital flow, notably since the globalization after the 1980s. This analysis of globalization argued that this new scale was created out of the new economic practices. The vernacular of globalization becomes synonymous with corporate capitalism and, as far as we are interested, an associated consumption culture. I must say that in the Goethe Weltliteratur concept, Goethe never separated the cultural aspect and the economic aspect of Weltliteratur. So this tended to highlight how the global as a scale is a problematic formulation, one that was born out a capitalist enclosure of the planet. And of course, the planetary crisis of our century, have tested the limits and maybe the failure of such totalism globality. I was afraid to be too long, but I might be too short. Much of the literature around the planetary in the humanities and the social sciences is indebted to the work of Gayatri Spivak, a comparative literary scholar by background. Though the planetary is a concept that Spivak had worked on and reworked, a first discussion of the planetary was presented at a conference on migration in Switzerland in 1997, in the context of reflection on how I could to think about the migrant in Switzerland at the time when migration came from beyond Europe. In this sense, the planetary is not an abstract figure of Earth science. It's not the image, beautiful image of the globe. We might go to Apollo. It's not the image of the globe. The blue marble is the title of the next picture. Yeah. It has been called the blue marble. That was first captured by lunar astronauts in 1968. So the planetary is not a ground or foundation, and she said that it resists, Spivak says, the planetary resists to representation. Maybe it's a big change with good time. Planetary is a way of representing, of figuring collective responsibility toward others, to develop other ways of analyzing subjects and communities. It refigures the human by considering how subjects are formed through the conditions and rights of collective responsibility. In other words, the designation of the planet have consequence on the designation of the subjects and communities that inhabit it. Planetary life and human figures are intimately connected and linked. Just a comment about this blue marble and the picture before. It was the NASA was very proud and rightly said that it was the first time it was possible for us from the Earth to have a complete image of the Earth. Because before we only had, when we have pictures from the moon, we only had fragmented pictures. So it was the first time in the history of humanity where we can see this totality, and it's very much looks like, for me, like the balloon with which Chaplin is playing in The Dictator, because there is nothing underneath. Spivak has famously said, I quote, that the globe is on our computers. It is the logo of the World Bank, and then you have the logo of the World Bank. No one lives there. No one lives there. And we think we can aim to control globality. Instead, she proposes, I quote, that the planet overwrite the globe. And so then you have, after the World Bank logo, you have a quotation. This is the book she published 7 years after her first talk in Switzerland, and she wrote another text. She entitled Planarity, and can you have a look at the text? Thank you so much. So in this new piece, Planetarity, she wrote, I quote, I read the text. I propose the planet to overwrite the globe. Globalization is the imposition of the same system of exchange everywhere. In the gridwork of electronic capital, we achieve that abstract ball, blue marble ball, sphere, covered in latitudes and longitudes, cut by virtual lines, once the equator and the tropics and so on, now drowned by the requirements of geographical information systems. To talk planet talk by way of unexamined environmentalism, referring to an individual natural space rather than a differentiated political space, can work in the interest of his globalization in the mode of the abstract as such. And then there is a long sentence between parentheses. I've been insisting that to transmute the literature of the global south to an undifferentiated space of English rather than a differentiated political space is a relative move. And that's why I was referring to the Booker Prize before. And so she goes on, the globe is on our computers. No one lives there. It allows us to think that we can aim to control it. The planet is in this species of alterity, belonging to another system, and yet who inhabit it on loan. on loan, and on loan, we inhabit it on loan. Maybe you remind the Emerson sentence, landscape doesn't belong to anyone. Belonging to another system, and yet we inhabit it on loan. It's not really amenable to a neat contrast with the globe, end of quote. So planetary literature is not a canon. It's a broad conversation about Earth as a shared system-spanning climate fiction, environmental humanities, and speculative figures. Certain authors and books come up again and again because they grapple directly with planetary scale, ecology, and human responsibility. Of course, a good place to start is The Other Story by Richard Powers. It weaves multiple human stories around trees and forests, framing non-human life as a center rather than background. In a similar ecological vein, Margaret Atwood's Madame trilogy imagines a near future shaped by genetic engineering and environmental landscape. Science fiction is, of course, hugely influential here. You can also read two French authors, Michel Houellebecq, La possibilité d'une île, or you can read Éric Chevillard, Sans l'orang-outan, Without the Orangutan, published in 27. I quote Chevillard. We did, it's a short, sorry, it's not on the slide, but it's a very short passage. We did not suspect the importance of the orangutan in the general organization of the world, or that everything was held together thanks to him, to his discreet but decisive action. He was the subtle cog. It was enough for him to disappear, for everything to collapse. How to live without him. So planetary literature is a way of thinking about literatures on a global, interconnected scale, with emphasis on relationships, environments, and shared human conditions, and not a way of thinking about literature just in international or world dimensions. And Spivak introduced it as an alternative to the more market-driven concept of world literature. I would like to conclude this presentation with some pictures. Because Yolaine told me that she liked them. But it's not the only reason. It's not the only reason. These are images and posters. They are all produced by the same people. A collective of French graphic designers. The team's name is Ne Pas Plier, who was active in the 80s and the 90s. Ne pas plier in French has a double meaning. Do not bend and to resist. And I thought it interesting to show them to you because it marks, I mean, they are leftists, activists, as you can see. But I didn't, how to say, I didn't see before working for this presentation that they were so interested in the planet at that time. So it marks a sort of beginning of planetary conscience at the moment in France through the pictures. And some of these posters were produced, as you can see, for the last one. I think I have 3 or 4 of them. There is Monet World. I hope you can see when it was. There is Hamburger Monet World. This is Monet World, Hamburger Monet World. The third one, what is the third one? Yeah, the third one is a planet in war with a lot of tanks, rockets. The next one is a huge wall in the exhibition the group had in the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam in 1995. And with the last one, the next one is the last one, I think. No, this is a piece they created for the exhibit. And the last one, yeah, the last one is, so you know where you are between sky and earth. And it's on a highway, of course, near Paris. And it's very close to the title of Jacques Roubaud. And there is bizarre thing because the earth is blue and steel is white. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you very much. Yeah, this your presentation relates literature and planetary thinking, and but of course you showed the difference between Weltliteratur and world literature and planetary thinking. So thank you so much. That's very important. I'm wondering, are there any questions? I see no hands. Shall I stop the sharing? Yes, Guamin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Philippe, for your wonderful presentation. I personally have a contact with Dan Roche since he organized every year, but interrupted during the COVID-19 period. How to say, the camp
the planet one of the world literature.
Yeah. And so, but it seems to be a strategy for the American professor to unite the specialists of comparative literature to join together to promote literary critics under the umbrella of world literature. And my colleague, for example, Yolaine, he has some critics on this idea of world literature. But in fact, for the for someone who like me, out of the circle of literature, it seems to me that world literature is a way to promote the minor literature in a sense, yeah, not the major literature in the sphere of English speaking, but it turned out to be, in fact, all the participants speaks in English. Yeah, so the danger, as you point out, it is really the unification and the homogenization of literature, not only in the form of speaking language, but also in the form of to express the sentiments, the theme, and the concern, especially ecological concern or humanistic concern, etc. So I think for the Asians in out of the so-called center of literature, yeah, maybe there is of such turn of all the literature. But I do agree with you, and I will think about what you will respond to this kind of question. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, to be honest, I must say that I mentioned Moretti and Damrosch. I could have mentioned also Pascal Casanova, whose book on Global Republic of Letters has been was influential at the same time, and it's also very Gallocentric, because the center of the world, as you know, is Paris. But I mean, of course, Paris is universal, so we all know this. But no, to be honest, I must say that critics of world literature, I'm thinking to, well, a sinologist, Aung Sosi, in Chicago, against Moretti and Casanova, not Damrosch, because I mean they are in the same academic circles, but they have argued that there is a multitude of possible literary worlds, and this multitude of possible literary worlds make up the world of world literature. The other thing is that this standardization, the danger of standardization that you were referring. I mean, we return to the danger Auerbach, when he was living in the US just after the war, after leaving Turkey, where he was living during the Second World War. We are going back to the danger he mentioned in his short piece about standardization. But I think it's also a difficulty because it's a problem of scale. World literature is nice when, or Weltliteratur is nice when you have 3 or 4 or 5 important literature. But as soon as you begin to have as many literature as you have languages in the world, that is to say, 5,000 languages, what do you do? And so I think the importance of scale is major. Yeah. But I mean, this Summer Institute of the International World Literature Institute, no doubt there is. This is a way of making minor literatures visible, but it's also a big academic bonum. I mean, it's.
Chi-Ming had a question as well. Thank you, Philippe.
Yes. Thank you, Philippe. Very wonderful presentation and clarify a lot of problems. But I'm wondering about, I have two comments about your presentation, especially about the last part, comparative literature. We have read all these texts with my students, and we have impression, firstly, that they are still very cultural, as you put the 4 points, or cardinal points. They are still very cultural and not so natural. There's no, I would like to say, natural point of view about our planet. For them, there's still a cultural word. That is the first point I would like you to comment. And the second point is more about, it seems there's another tradition rather than English-speaking world, especially from the French-speaking world, like the ideas advanced by Pierre Hestany, Michel Serres, Paul Latour, J. Clement, and Philippe Descola about the planetarity or the planet. I would like also to hear your comments, but they are not really in the literary world, true. Yeah, but that is another concept of the planet, much more close to the idea of the nature. Because I have to leave, so I just put my comments.
Okay,
very,
so,
very briefly.
so I will have very short comments. First question: these are cultural texts. Okay, I could have referred, but this time it would have been too long to ecological, eco-criticism and eco-poetics. I choose not to do this in this presentation. And I think it's good that Spivak is cultural, because she is among the only ones who is trying to think the contemporary huge phenomenon of migration. I mean, the planetary problem as a migration problem. The other people, Emilie Apter and other people, Moretti, it's as if the only migration was the migration of literature. With the model of the novel expansion from the center to the periphery. I also choose to be a bit polemical, and that's why I didn't mention the French world, the French school, because I'm interested in the French school. First, they are not writing about literature, as you said, and secondly, in Latour and Descola, their main subject is how to pass the nature-culture separation that has been instituted in the West, in the Western tradition, from the 18th century on to Lévi-Strauss. I think it's of course. I mean, I'm taking this in account. I think Spivak is taking this in account when she speaks about planetarity, even if it's not a main point. But obviously, I mean, this old division between nature and culture is a problem here also. Are you satisfied? Almost satisfied? 50% satisfied?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I have to leave because I have another
please.
online meetings. Very,
Yes.
very sorry for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chi-Ming. Are there any questions or remarks or comments on Philippe Roussin's presentation? Maybe Johanna, do you have questions or comments?
Thank you, Philippe. It's hard to think planetary literature in 21st century, I think. First thing I find, it always confused me how to make this, the relationship or differentiation between literature, planetary literature, and world literature. Yeah, that is I think it's hard to think about. But when I read your abstract, and you say that what we now call planetary literature is a way of thinking about writing that goes beyond national or even global perspective and focus on the Earth as a shared, interconnected system, ecologically, culturally, and imaginatively. I think this is a very good starting point to do some reflect, to reread traditional literature, such as you have give us a very interesting example, the Goethe's the essay on granite. On granite. I think it's a very, it's very, when I reread this essay, it always give. I think this paper, this essay has been ignored by most of the Goethe's readers because most people will just separate two parts and ask whether this is an essay or a prose on nature, or it is kind of a report or scientific observation. Yeah, it's, I think, but now if we, from your definition about the planetary literature, and to look at the Earth as a place share, a place shared by most of the shared a kind of the, you say that interconnected system, and I think when we read, it surprised me that Goethe at that time, at the end of in the age of 19th century, already have such an open perspective to reread the rock, and you give us a connection with others' work, such as you mentioned Emerson and the French writer. Do you have any, just when you read it, you give us an example? Do you have a special analyst point of view, for example, to read it from Bruce Ladou's, for example, critical zoom, because that is a place we live on the Earth, but we don't know what it is. And the good now, when we read it, and then we suddenly find that the planet is through this a piece of that kind of existence of the nature. We probably today we just take it as a kind of the instrument of the archaeology, no, architecture. Sorry, and But when we read that Goethe's text, and he will say, for example, he said that when we read this this piece of the it is so there's a quote from this essay. He said, "Nothing here in its primal ancient state. Everything is ruin, chaos, and destruction." So it seems that it's not a kind of the romantic feeling, but actually today we say that it is a fact of the thing living with us together, but we don't know it. So do you have any, you know, you say that beyond the human centrism or beyond national or even global perspective to reread Goethe's this essay? This is when I read it, I'm still thinking about it. So I don't know whether you may just give us some, explanation or interpretation about this essay. This is one question on Goethe. And in this essay, probably you can give us a question because Goethe said that he not only talking about granite, but he also talking about French says the name of gneiss, Gneiss. That is I don't know in Chinese translated as 片麻岩,
Yeah,
花岗
it's
岩,
nice. In French,
gneiss.
yeah, nice.
And or in there's another kind of the gray rack, GRAYWACKE. I don't know. He make a difference, and he just focus on the granite, but ignore the other two pieces. What's the difference for you? Okay, that question. Very stupid.
There is a lot of questions. I'm not sure I'm an expert and able to answer. No, the reason why I talk that much about 19th century literature is because, as I hope I have shown, that there was a close connection at that time between that was called literature and the science. And I mean, this connection you find it in Rousseau when he's studying flowers, botany, and of course this connection has disappeared, at least in our Western culture. And for instance, most contemporary philosophers, they know nothing about contemporary science. They are just unable to think about the world as designed by physicists and mathematicians. And of course, it was not the case for Kant. I mean, the cosmogony, the Kant cosmogony is I mean, he was very, very good in mathematics. He was able to discuss the contemporary mathematics of his time. The only problem he has was that is the chronology of the Earth he was working on was a different one. Was different from the chronology of the Bible. It was a problem. But and so this connection, I mean, this text on granite is very poetic, but it also has scientific fundaments, even if today, I mean, this is just a piece of a bizarre thing, of course, for in the history of science. I mean, there are so many runes in the science history, but the piece on granite really expresses his theory of the origin and the history of the Earth. And in granite, there are three components: mica, and I don't know the two others. And for him, it was it was a trinity. It was a trinity. And for as for the first question, I think, what is the difference? Is there a difference because world lit and planetary literature? I mean, they are not on the same level, because world lit is now an academic institution. I mean, it has been institutionalized in the complete department everywhere in the world. It has a long history beyond it, because the creator the origin is Goethe, so it dates from 19th century. Planetary literature is nothing like this. It's just an horizon. It's an. I mean, there are two different levels. It's an horizon, and it's a bunch of individual works that you come across in different countries at different moments in different languages. But there is not a corpus. I mean, I don't think there is no corpus for a valid corpus for world lit, and it's even worse, or it's even better for planetary literature. I mean, I just mentioned two or three literary works of non-fiction and fiction at the end of my talk, but and the reason why the people working on Goethe have not dedicated much interest to this kind of pieces is because the Goethe is a monument for the national German literature. Is not a monument for German science. But when he was living, he himself devoted, as I said in the beginning, when I was starting my presentation, he devoted us. I mean, he thought his scientific works, research, or inquiries were as important as his novels and Faust. And he has 45. He has written 45 scientific papers. And there is more than 50 project files and notes.
Are there any other questions? Maybe Fantine? Or someone else?
I'm not asking myself a question, but I'm making a comment. It's interesting to, maybe it's very banal, but it's interesting to remark that these people, Goethe, as well as the transcendentalists. When they thought about the Earth or the planet or the world, they were thinking to Asia. They were referring to Chinese culture or Indian literature. They never referred to how to say the land that the European had conquered during the after the 16th century, South America, North America, Africa. I mean, for them, the Earth or the world has a culture, and for it's obvious with Goethe, because when he's talking about Weltliteratur, he's just reading a Chinese novel. But it's the same with the Transcendentalists. I mean, they were the first to say that the East Asian religions were important. I mean, you don't understand what happened in the 60s in the US. People going to India, if you don't know that Emerson and Thoreau read Buddhist texts for themselves, not for philological reasons, as it was the case in Europe at the same time.
Can I ask a short question? You mentioned that Goethe noticed that a human being has an effect on his environment. And what is the term he uses for environment? Is that nature or something like that?
I have to check. Because sometimes I read the German text and sometimes I read the translation. So I will check. And I will.
Thank you.
So thank you for the.
May I add a further question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Go on. Please.
A friend of academian Zheng Yu, she has published a book on the early 20th centuries by citing Paul Valéry to present the introduction of French literature in China, and she tried to prove that there is a literary exactitude, just like science. Yeah. So in the early 20th centuries, there is an ideology of literature try to ameliorate to promote Chinese literature as a kind of scientific model. Yeah. So by using literature or literary text, one can understand or know world just as a scientist. Yeah. So so there are two orientations. One orientation is to take the traditional Chinese text to be a reflection of the worldview in ancient times, and there is epistemic value in those texts. Yeah. The other, so they try to prove that the Chinese thinking is analogical and not analytical, etc. So there is a division like Bergson. There is a Chinese tendency to use intuition, analogy to approach the things, not just as the Western analytical approach. Yeah, this is one. But in addition to this, there is a division between epic tradition and the lyric tradition, and they try to manifest that in Chinese literature. It is lyricism which is dominant instead of because they lacks the epic like Homerian poetry, etc. So that in a double sense, the motivation of using or to justify Chinese literature, not in the sense of planetary literature, but in the sense of justifying Chinese be a particular or specific type of literature. Yeah, so I want to know how do you respond to such a tendency. Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm not able to answer because part of your talk was I can't hear it because it was cut. So it's about the importance of lyric poetry in China's literature for the West, right? At the beginning of the 20th century, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Using the scientific model, to say that there is a rationality, but still in the lyricism. Yeah.
No, I don't have the answer at the moment. I will have to think about it and to send you a message. Can you send me the title of the book you were mentioning and the name of the author?
Yeah, but it's in Chinese.
Ah, okay. Okay.
But it's a sign to show that there is a rebirth of attention of poverty. Yeah, and certain early modern Chinese poets try to translate poverty to have some dialogue with traditional Chinese poetry. Yeah, this is an interesting background.
Okay. I swear to think about it and to mail you an answer.
Thank you. Yeah, good.
Thank you for your question.
So we still have 2 or 3 minutes. Is there another question? A comment?
Is there any other question? If they are still very interesting in the essay of Goethe on Gani, it's really fantastic.
I agree.
Yeah, I think many layers. Some people say that it is through the granite we have this a kind of the spiritual experience. Or, but from the new materialism's perspective, it's back to the earth. Right?
But as I said, he has amassed a huge collection of rocks, more than near 100,000 pieces at the end of this. He has only 30,000 books in his home, but more than 80,000 rock pieces.
Books are heavy, but rocks are even heavier.
Small
Especially granite.
pieces, not huge blocks.
Thank you so much, Philippe.
I will send you the translation of Jacques Roubaud.
Okay, thank you.
I have recorded your talk. Can I put it on? Can I ask to put it on Carl's YouTube website, on Carl's website, or not?
Who are you asking to me?
To you, yes, please.
Okay. What is the habit of the seminar?
Depends. Some agree, some don't agree. So it's up to you.
Can I have a look before?
Oh, of course, you can.
Just to
Take
know
your
if
time.
I'm insane or not.
Yeah, sure. You think about it and just let me know.
Just
Thank
one
you.
day or two, and
Yes. Well, we are not in a hurry.
Okay, good.
Because it takes some time.
Okay, but anyway, thank you. I had great pleasure to work on this paper.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Philippe.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody for your listening. Thanks for all the questions.
I just add one word.
Yes,
one
sure.
word only. Yeah, if Goethe had encountered the rock from the comet, maybe he will imagine another planet. Yeah.
Yes, possibly.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Philippe.
Yeah, very beautiful presentation.
Yes.
Thank you. I
Great
learned a
pleasure.
lot.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Long life to Goethe. Long life. To
You're right.
Fountain. Yeah, fountain. Well,
See
Fountain would
you.
like to say
See you.
something.
Have a good summer. Have a good
I
summer.
think
Yes, have a
probably
good summer, and we will meet each other in October.
Okay.
October.
Yes.
Or
October. Next session is on October
okay.
11 or something like that. Yes.
The Planetary Seminar.
Yes, the seminar.
Yeah.
Is Fountain would say something?
Oh, I'm here. Just wanted to say that thank you so much for the really inspiring talk today. Sorry, I have a little fever right now, so I don't really
poor
have
of you.
time. But it
I
really
heard you.
remind me of a lot of the younger writers in Taiwan, like Xu Zhenfu, who I'm working with right now, in recent months. So, just wanted to share that I felt a lot of connections. So thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Fenty.
Thank you.
See you in October, right?
Online.
Online,
Oh.
online. Yes.
Yeah, online.
So thanks to everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And bye-bye. Yes.
Bye.
Good
Good
night, everyone.
Yeah,
Good
take care.
Good
afternoon.
night for the Taiwanese. And good day
Good
for
night.
people in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good
But
afternoon.
Johanna is in Taipei at the moment. She's not in
Yes.
Canada.
Yes. But
Yeah, I'm in Taiwan. Taipei.
thank you, Dongbo.
Okay, thank you, Yajun, Liajun. Thank you.
Thank you, Tianchen. Thank you.
Liajun. It's one of my students in Fuda.
Good. Thank you.
In Zhonghan, I don't know. In Hanzhong is your student?
Oh, it's
No,
not.
I don't know him.
Okay, from
Maybe
Lin
from Lin Zhiming's. Yes.
UE. And Yajun, Liajun. Too late. Okay. 我们又来先退出去，然后我们再进来。
好的，好，先退出去，好，
好，
你先退，你退出去，我们就可以退出去。
好的，
OK，
然后再开，
然后用同一个是吧？
还是用这个哈？可不可以？
我寄给你们另外一个，
好，
哦
进另外一个，好，
我马上寄。
谢谢，谢谢，
好，谢谢。